is found in Romans chapter 1, verse 25. It says that they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshiped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. He tells you a truth and he twists it just enough. And I believe that the Lord desires to set us free today, but only by the truth can we be set free. You know, Jesus knew the truth because he was the truth. He knew the Word of God because he was the Word of God. And when the enemy came to Jesus in Matthew chapter 4 in the wilderness to tempt him, he made the crucial mistake with the Son of God of debating the Word of God. And it's a bad idea to debate the Word of God with the Word of God. John chapter 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He's not arguing with someone who knows about the Word of God. He is arguing with the embodiment of the Word of God. And it gives us a pure picture of the principle that is illustrated in Romans 1:25, but only in reverse. In Matthew chapter 4, verse 1, our perspective is immediately challenged because it says that Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And that is a strange construct, that Jesus was led by God to be tempted by the devil. If you've been told that God won't lead you into difficult situations, you've been lied to. If you've ever been told, or it's ever been implied or inferred, that the will of God will always lead to the path of least resistance, you've been lied to. If you've ever been told that the proof of the favor of God on your life is that situations become less difficult and more agreeable, you've been lied to. Because Jesus, before his ministry was fully announced, was led into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And yet I want us to see that this passage is as much about trust as it is about temptation. Now, let me say this real quickly. It's not the truth that you can quote. It's not the truth that you know mentally, but it is the truth that you do that guides your life to its ultimate outcome.
I went to meet JT Foxx in Las Vegas without even realizing it was a JT Foxx event. I just saw him the day before. My first impression of JT Foxx is, what an arrogant asshole. And then it reminded me of a friend I know. After listening to his pitch and presentation, I realized that this man knows what he's talking about. And he's a straight shooter. He tells it like it is, not because he wants to show off, but because he knows there's a lot of things that needs to be said. I realize now that kindness is telling people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And I realize even though it comes off offensive, politically incorrect, the truth of the matter is JT Foxx cares a lot about people, about bringing people up. He came from poverty. He knows what it's like to be unseen. And so one of the esoteric wisdoms he's learned in the process is mindset shifts, specifically mindset about the self. The key is not to obtain as quickly as possible. The key is to obtain with as much integrity, honesty, and love as possible. And when that happens, you're playing a non-zero-sum game. I bought his package, his 8-figure business course, and in it he says, don't do 1,000 things 5 times, do 5 things 1,000 times, and he's right. Now that I've healed and transformed my own daddy issues, I'm realizing that these men know what they're talking about and have a different type of love language that I do not understand, but I respect. This kind of love language is the kind that is built on tough love, on building up, on strengthening, on helping people become anti-fragile. to strengthen the core self. After meeting Archangel Michael in Rome, I respect and understand the divine masculine. The divine masculine is out to protect, profess, and provide for those he loves. And there is nothing wrong with providing, professing, and protecting my inner child by growing wealth inside the nonprofit organization. I had a lot of shame around that. I had a lot of shame thinking if I got paid a good salary from the work that I've invested so much time, energy, and money to, that I would be cheating people out of something by me becoming wealthy and sustainable from it. And that is a lie. That is false humility. The divine masculine aims to destroy false humility.
And if we are not actively reaching the young minds of our city, we will find ourselves in 10, 20 years in time diminishing instead of continuing to thrive and grow. We must be on mission to reach the people of Los Angeles who are up and coming. These are the people who are going to rule our companies. These are the people who are going to govern our city. These are the people who are going to oversee medical fields and law and places of influence. And we need to make sure that we are taking responsibility to bring the gospel to them. I'm excited about every single expression of the unconventional church. And to give you an idea of what we are going for, I'd love for you one more time to turn your eyes to the screen and check out this beautiful story.
Abusive, toxic, and to think how much of a hole I dug myself into and I couldn't get myself out.
My memories of growing up with my mom as a single mother were actually, early on, were pretty good, up until I was about 13. Sort of changed into this person that I didn't know or recognize. She started doing drugs on the couch, just incoherent, and just kind of stare at the TV. And the opportunity presented itself that I could become a drug dealer. That didn't pan out very well. As they say, monkeys can't sell bananas. I didn't have any reservations about what drugs I would do and how I would do them or how often. My life was kind of off the hinges, and we got arrested with about $30,000 worth of drugs. I think at that point I was so defeated that I couldn't even really feel anything.
I felt so much guilt and so much shame, and I was desperate.
As I'm there in the cell, I start to feel like, God is giving me these impressions that He was present during all those times, and it was like I was seeing my past in the proper context for the first time. The next thing God showed me was that I had never tried to believe in Him apart from people, that I'd always believed in what people had shown me, and that He was separate from that, and that all I had to do was believe in Him apart from that. And it kind of happened in an instant.
During the 6 months, every Friday, this woman would come and she would pray over me. I needed that peace, I needed that comfort, and I got it.
I tried to put it in the progress of my journey, so the ones that are kind of the most of me just hurting is kind of in the beginning, and then the ones at the end are me coming to terms with things.
Flow of the general story, if it can be picked out. What are the themes? What is the story people think is happening? And then grammar and spelling, of course.
Annalyn, how would you want your book to be edited?
So I'm also ruminating with what Callie and Katie said. I think that one of the things that we should all collectively focus on is this critical commenting. You know what I mean? Oftentimes when somebody asks me clarifying questions on my writing, that helps me decipher that event better, right? And then I can expound on the event and the past and clarify, this is the experience and this is the place where I was. So I think that's something that I would really want focused on is when you read my stuff, does that make sense? Or do you have more questions about the events that I am talking about? Because more than likely, if you have questions, I have answers that I forgot about, right? So I think that absolutely grammar, absolutely flow. And I love the idea of, if you have something to say about my writing and about my book, please just say it. Please just ask.
Do we want, when we're editing, do we want to like really go in depth and leave comments and suggestions, or is it just like highlighting the bits that resonate with us?
Very good question. I think it's both. I mean, let's because okay, here's I would say it. What would you want, Callie? Like if you open it up to Katie, Annalyn, and I, what would you want us to do for you in your book?
I would pretty much want it to be torn apart. Like I want to know what I need to do and how I need to do it. So I would, if there were just like hundreds of comments, I'd be fine.
I'm like Breaking Bad. I was that teacher that was passive, didn't stand up for myself, and just lost, didn't have a strong voice. And over time, shit just kept happening and happening and happening until one day I was just like, I need to do something about it. But instead of selling really high quality crystal meth, I am going to be pushing high quality journaling programs that really reverse curses, break spells, and help people transform their life tragedies into a love story. So that's my story. And I feel like now that I've come back from my 9-month trip to 9 different countries and wrote that book on breaking spells, I've come to a point where I feel like I'm integrating my shadow. Like I really own my shadows, but leveraging it for good, in that I do feel like I deserve at this point to make money, to sustain this organization, to sustain everybody.
I agree.
Yeah.
Free never works with this kind of stuff. Because
I think
the people that subscribe onto free want you to do it for them. And nobody can do this for another person. If that makes sense.
I totally agree with you, John. And I agree with the sentiment. I also want to say that, you know, if we focus right now on selling and making the love story a sustainable business, at some point in our future, at some point on our horizon, we can set up scholarship funds. We can set up means so that if you truly do not have whatever amount of money that our program costs, we can help you, right? But at this stage, we are not there. We can barely help ourselves. So we have to be able to build ourselves up so that we're strong enough to carry people if that is something they need.
Now that I realize less is more. I realize that the key is simplicity, not complexity. I think Ibrahim and I will come up with financial models that are simple now that we have an aim.
Look at this, Mingjie. I wrote it down.
Nice.
That's weird.
I appreciate that. Wow, that's synchronicity. And say, yes, we will invest $35K as your brand sponsor, CSR partner, to support this, because we believe in taking away the stigma of mental health by focusing on the artistic expression and journaling of things. So instead of giving away these diaries with their sponsorship logo, we would be using the money to pay people like Callie, Annalyn, anyone graduating. There's going to be people graduating soon. To go to their nearest campus, we'll be paying them a salary or a stipend, preferably a stipend initially, to just put together a journaling workshop. Because it's not just, John brought up a really good point. When he had the diary in front of him, he didn't know what to do with it. It's so new. He didn't know how to engage with it until we actually, like, you know, well, John, why don't you kind of tell us your experience with the Love Story Journal?
It wasn't so much that I didn't know what to do with it, but because there are simple instructions about, you know, how to make it work. But I think a lot of people are already isolated. And so now what I've done is I've gotten myself a book with a bunch of pictures in it of people I don't know, and I'm gonna use my phone to somehow connect to something they've said, done, or whatever, and that's supposed to inspire me, and it might. But if I'm in a group of people who are doing the same thing, I'm probably going to feel more inspired. Because the last thing, I mean, for me personally, you know, it's some days it's hard enough just being in my skin, you know, especially in the beginning of something like this. So I think what a lot of people are probably looking for in those early stages is, hey, do I have to do this alone too? I'm already going through it, and I'm you know, I'm suffering this emotional way and that emotional way, and I feel like I'm crazy every day anyway, and I'm trying to find ways to get out of my own skin and get out of the house and do this, that, and the other. Now I've got a book that's telling me to sit down in a quiet place with my cell phone, and I'm not even going to use my cell phone really. I mean, I think you can take it from there, right? I mean, I'm not putting down the process, but if it further isolates people, I think that's a problem.
I agree.
If people feel isolated, it becomes a problem.
I want to say thank you so much for sharing that. You know, Mingjie and I were just talking about how we are on the other side of this program, right? We've spent the time, we've done the program, we've done the steps. So we're really far away from where John is, right? And John is our target audience. So the experiences that you're having right now are going to revolutionize the way that Mingjie and I think about this process, because Mingjie and I have gone through the process, so we're not in the same headspace. So that's really important. That's really important for you to share those experiences with us so we can understand and remember what it's like being in the center of your heartache. When you're right in the center, you're right. Some days are so hard, you don't even want to get out of bed. Why would you want to open a book and sit alone, right? Whereas if you're sitting in a group of other people, or if you're connected, really connected with our online group, then maybe it's a different experience. But asking you to sit in your house alone, yeah, I can see how that'd be a really hard experience.
I mean, at the end of the day, you have to journal by yourself. Okay, that's a given. However, if I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking out loud. If I know I'm listening to who is this? It's the one I just did. Oh hell! If I know that I'm listening to Kira with a group of other people, and that maybe we're going to talk about what we heard, and you know, just for a short while, my ability to get off that conference and open that book and start writing might be a little greater.
Yeah. So I want to validate that. I think it's really important, because when you're in a group, you can talk about the things. Maybe you can even start your journal entry in a group, right? Where you start to get these ideas and you start to get inspiration. And then when you go home and when you're by yourself again, it's easier to re-engage with that material, and it's easier to sit by yourself and actually write your entry because you've had this interaction with other people. I think that's really important.
It also gives you a way past the whole, you know, what people used to call writer's block. Well, I just don't know how to get started. So I agree with, you know, if everybody gets the first 2, 3, 4 sentences of their journal entry going while they're part of a group, they're gonna have a much greater chance of digging into it later.